Attachment traumas. What are they? Attachment trauma is a relational trauma. When we attach, then we can actually relate. We're connected. We can relate. That is attachment. We can relate because I'm close to you. I can feel you. I can hear you. I can see you. I can taste you. I can be a part of you. I am a part of you. Okay. But a lot of us can't do that. And we don't even know that we can do that. I can talk about this professionally and I can talk about this personally, because I used to be that person back in the day. Attachment means that you actually have a connection with somebody. But when you grow up in spaces where you didn't learn how to attach, either because there's a medical problem with there was a medical issue with your parents, or maybe they died, or maybe that the parenting was sporadic, or it was not there at all. When there was no place for nurture, when there was no place for consistency in parenting, all of this actually has consequences because you develop negative coping beliefs or core beliefs, and these core beliefs are not necessarily, they're not necessarily conscious. You don't as a 6-year old or a 7-year old or a 10-year old, you don't necessarily sit down and say, I'm going to make a decision, I'm not going to trust people. I'm going to make a decision, I'm not going to be close to people. I remember when my mom died, I was 12 years old. Somehow I developed a core belief system that I didn't want to be close to anybody because they would leave. Do you understand? But I didn't consciously make that decision. I just knew I had that decision because it impacted the way that I related to people. Does this make sense? And so we build walls around ourselves. So we build walls. And those walls are because you've been rejected, you've been abandoned, and you've experienced some kind of relational hurt. And then you decide, this is never going to happen to me again. This is never going to happen to me again. So I don't want to deal with it. So I'm not going to into me you see anymore. We intimacy. I'm not going to do that anymore. I want things to be transactional. You bring this to the table, you bring that to the table, or it's platonic. This is all I can give right now. Is this making sense? And when we have those things, it's because we have been wounded in some ways, or you could be the opposite end of the spectrum, which is you're too clingy. You don't really trust yourself. You're too clingy. You're always asking people, to validate you. You always want affirmation. You always want to be acknowledged. So when people tell you to trust. When someone now tells you to trust, it's like somebody saying for you to jump off a cliff and you look down below and there's no water. It is like you're plunging to your own death, right? And so you don't want to do it. It's like, no, I cannot do this. But we all need to begin to heal. Healing is possible. Just like you can pass on traumas, you can also pass on healing. We need to at least say, let me give life a chance. Let me give myself a chance. Because there is so much value. There's so much beauty in being able to be connected to somebody, to someone to see you. So and for people to know you. So people to be able to say, I lived life with this person. So let's look at some examples in our 21st century examples, of what it looks like when it comes to relationship, when it comes to attachment traumas. If you find that you're ghosting people all the time, that means you don't call them back, you don't want you're sending one-liners. These are people who maybe you had a close relationship with. Maybe you were starting to get close, and immediately you're going to shut the door. It's like, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be with this person. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships here. I'm talking about relationships in general. I'm talking about building communities of love. Communities of love, people that you can love and they can love you back. This is what I'm talking about, because love, you can never outgive love. All right. Just because you love one person doesn't mean you can love people. You can love your friends, your aunties, your uncles, people around you, and be able to to be able to give some of yourself to them. Does this make sense? So when you find yourself ghosting people constantly, you don't call, you don't text, you don't do anything, that could be a sign of attachment traumas. If you're overthinking everything that people say to you, or even or text that they say to you, somebody says something at a maybe at a party or in conversation with you, and you overthink it. Did they mean this? Why did they say that to me? Or they write you a text, and things are misread, and you exaggerate some things, and all of this, and it just becomes something that you ruminate on. That is a sign of attachment traumas. Or when you don't feel worthy of love. If you're in a relationship with somebody, a romantic relationship, and you don't feel worthy of love, I just want to say you should not be in anybody's relationship anyway. When you have trauma, when you have attachment traumas, you need to heal yourself first before you get into a relationship with somebody. If not, you're going to attract the same person as you, and you're going to all keep wounding each other. If you don't feel worthy of love, you shouldn't be in a relationship. And on the other end, you should not be in relationship with somebody who doesn't feel worthy of your love, because they will disappoint you. All right. And the final one I want to say is, if you're constantly waiting for them to do something wrong, you're constantly waiting for them to leave, or you're jealous of them, or you're monitoring them constantly. Who did you talk to today? Who smiled at you? Who did you stand next to? Who is that person? And on all of these things, and you want to own them. Anytime you want to own somebody, that is relationship trauma or attachment trauma. We don't own anybody. Everybody belongs to their own self and to their own God. So you're nobody's owner. You don't own anybody. I know there's cultures and that says that somebody's the head of the husband's the head of the wife, and all of that. Religions say this, but doesn't mean it's not ownership. No human being owns or should own another human being. That is why slavery and all of these things are just heinous. Just evil is the word. We shouldn't. No human being should own another. All right. So let me get away from that. So you shouldn't want to own anybody. Everybody should want to be with you. The person you're with should want to be with you. And some of you want people to need you. You want them to need you. Need me. If I do all of these things for you, you will need me. If I do all of these things for me, you will need me. The problem with somebody needing you is this: when they don't need you, then you're no longer in their sphere of thoughts. When they don't need you, then you're disposable. You understand? Because this is what we think: if we meet their needs, then they're gonna owe us. All right, but that's not the way this thing works. Nobody owes you anything. If you're gonna give, you better give because you want to. Because the way the universe works is that harvest can come back to you through another channel. It's not limited to this one person. So when you want to own somebody, you need to check that yourself, because that is not love. That is not love. Love freely gives. All right? It freely gives. So if you're spending all your time trying to keep somebody, anything you compromise adversely to keep, you will eventually lose. What does that mean? When you compromise from the worst of yourself, and when you're in attachment traumas, you're in the worst of yourself. If you're doing all these things that I've said, is the worst of yourself. When you compromise from the worst of yourself, you will eventually lose whoever that person is. We want to always compromise from the best of us, from our love self, from our healed self. That is where we want to be.